because I am frustrated that we are having this hearing when we know that this administration can't take care of their own business. As we know, they recently illegally bombed yet another Venezuelan boat, and we may be headed for a war. We know that this particular president has decided that he wants to shake down people as relates to the First Amendment, because he has filed not one lawsuit, not two lawsuits, but he has filed numerous lawsuits. He filed a lawsuit against the New York Times. He filed one against the Wall Street Journal, against CBS, against ABC, against the Des Moines Register. He is doing all of this because he wants to quash any speech that is not appreciative or lauding him, which is pretty much anything that's factual. So let's talk a few facts about these January 6th felons that should still be incarcerated because they went through the process, but because they were doing things on his behalf, of course, he wanted to let them go. So they released more than 1,000 people who participated in the insurrection on this government, many of whom who had previous criminal records, like Mr. Theodore Mendenforth, who was convicted of predatory criminal sexual assault of a child.
We dive into one of the most explosive exchanges from Capitol Hill. Rep. Jasmine Crockett didn't hold back as she pressed Attorney General testimony on lawless actions, from ignoring court orders to suppressing free speech, and tied them directly to Donald Trump's pardons of violent offenders. With sharp precision, Crockett exposed the hypocrisy of a party that calls itself law and order while enabling lawlessness at the highest levels of power. Let's break down the key moments.
A lot to cover, so I'm starting with the AG. I want you to tell me whether or not it's lawful or lawless ignoring court orders.
That's lawless.
Impounding congressional funds.
Violates the law.
Invoking emergency powers when there is no emergency.
Unlawful.
Sending troops without an invite.
Violates the law.
Covering for pedophiles. I just threw that one in there. Okay, I'll move to the next one. What about revoking birthright citizenship?
Violates the 14th Amendment of the Constitution.
How about violating due process?
Violates the 5th and 14th Amendment of the Constitution.
How about what we see happening with redistricting that would in some way minimize, if not delete, the voices of people of color as they are going through and illegally going through this process? Is there a constitutional amendment that you can think of that is associated with that?
Probably many, but it is unlawful and unconstitutional and un-American.
Thank you. As well as, can you tell me if it is lawful or lawless to violate free speech?
That's lawless.
Okay, sounds about right, because, you know, we had to have a conversation about Jimmy Kimmel, so I'm going to say free Jimmy Kimmel for sure, and hopefully we will deal with the FCC chairman. But the reason that I wanted to go through that long list, and that was actually not even the half of it, is because since this administration has come in on January 20th, they have engaged in some form of every single thing that I said on that list, even the part about covering for pedophiles. So my question is, why are we sitting here today? Number one, they already passed their bootleg laws, and it's clear that even the bill author is not well informed about what his bill does. Because as has already been stated, at the age of 18, you are an adult. So this idea that somehow 21-year-olds were now somehow juveniles under DC law, is that accurate or inaccurate?
It was inaccurate, misunderstood the way the law works.
Correct. Could not understand how to read the law and decided that they were going to rewrite the law and mess up the law. And to be clear, we were talking about judges being able to have enough discretion to decide whether or not they were going to give someone an opportunity maybe to clean their record, such as the bill author was given that opportunity under Florida law because his second felony was picked up when he was 21, to be clear. So he was older than 18. And under this law, if you were under, 25, so 24 or under, then the judges had discretion, correct?
But only in certain kinds of cases, not the most serious cases. And in fact, that discretion was, as we know, exercised very rarely. And it would have been an opportunity had the Congress wanted to talk with the folks who are involved in applying that law and seeing how it works, to understand that this is not a law that's out of sync with other states, and it's working.
Thank you so much. And the reason that it matters is because now the gentleman from Florida is trying to become a governor, and chances are maybe DC, once they get statehood, could have had a future governor that had a second chance. But since they don't want other people to have chances that they've been given, they want to just pretend like they are bigger and better and badder than. So I will move on because I am frustrated that we are having this hearing when we know that this administration can't take care of their own business. As we know, they recently illegally bombed yet another Venezuelan boat, and we may be headed for a war. We know that this particular president has decided that he wants to shake down people as relates to the First Amendment, because he has filed not one lawsuit, not two lawsuits, but he has filed numerous lawsuits. He filed a lawsuit against the New York Times. He filed one against the Wall Street Journal, against CBS, against ABC, against the Des Moines Register. He is doing all of this because he wants to quash any speech that is not appreciative or lauding him, which is pretty much anything that's factual. So let's talk a few facts about these January 6 felons that should still be incarcerated because they went through the process, but because they were doing things on his behalf, of course, he wanted to let them go. So they released more than 1,000 people who participated in the insurrection on this government, many of whom had previous criminal records, like Mr. Theodore Mendenforth, who was convicted of predatory criminal sexual assault of a child, or Mr. Peter Schwartz, who had 38 prior convictions, including one where he beat his wife by repeatedly punching and biting her. Trump also pardoned Mr. David Daniel, who was convicted of production and possession of child pornography. Trump also pardoned Mr. Daniel Ball, who, quote, threw an explosive device that detonated upon at least 25 officers during the Capitol riot. He also had a record for, quote, domestic violence by strangulation. I'm not done. Trump also pardoned Mr. Andrew Taki, who sent nudes to an undercover law enforcement officer who was posing as a 15-year-old girl. Mr. Casey Hopkins also received a pardon from Trump, and Mr. Hopkins was convicted of forcible rape. According to court records, he, quote, had forcible intercourse with the victim, choked her to the point of impairing her vision, banged her head into a wall, and urinated into the victim's mouth as he humiliated her. These are the people that he decided to release in the streets of DC. So if anybody does need to clean up DC, I would agree it is this man, because he is the one that is causing half the crime that we have. Not only is he participating in the crime, but we know that he instigated the insurrection. And if I did say that I had one issue with the Biden-Harris administration, it is the fact that they did not move forward and make sure that this man was put where he should have been put. Because the last time I checked, as a criminal defense attorney, and Mr. Attorney General, you may have a different experience, but I never had a defendant that had 34 convictions for felonies and did not spend one day in jail. Never in my life. And the last time I checked, the party of law and order is the only one that decided that they would be out of order and decided to nominate someone who was not only indicted but was actually convicted of multiple felonies. That has never happened in this country, and it is a shame that we are dealing with it now, and now he wants to tell y'all how to do your jobs.
When Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett began her questioning, she didn't reach for lofty language or complicated hypotheticals. She used the simplest possible framework: lawful or lawless. And in doing so, she cut through the fog of partisanship to expose the raw reality of what has been happening in this country. She asked Attorney General Merrick Garland if ignoring court orders was lawful. He didn't hesitate: lawless. She asked about impounding congressional funds. His answer: violates the law. She asked about invoking emergency powers when there is no emergency. Garland: unlawful. She asked about sending troops without an invitation. His answer: violates the law. Each question was a trapdoor opening beneath the rhetoric of Republicans who like to posture as defenders of the Constitution. But Crockett didn't stop at abstractions. She drilled into specific abuses tied directly to Donald Trump and his allies. Revoking birthright citizenship? Garland made it plain. It violates the 14th Amendment. Violating due process? That cuts against the 5th and 14th Amendments. Gerrymandering districts to suppress voices of color? Unlawful, unconstitutional, and un-American. These were not partisan answers. They were constitutional facts. Then came the kicker: free speech. Crockett asked whether it was lawful to violate free speech. Garland's reply was swift: that's lawless. Crockett seized the moment with her now memorable line, "Free Jimmy Kimmel." It wasn't just a quip. It was a reminder that Trump and his allies have gone after critics in the press, late-night comedians, and journalists with lawsuits designed not to win, but to silence. What Crockett did was build a case. Since January 20th, she said, this administration has engaged in nearly every violation on her list, ignoring court orders, misusing emergency powers, attacking free speech, undermining due process, covering for predators, each one lawless, each one destructive. And the cumulative picture? A government run not by the rule of law, but by the whims of one man. She then pivoted to legislation, calling Republican bills bootleg laws, half-baked, misunderstood, and riddled with hypocrisy. She told the story of a Florida congressman, now angling to be governor, who had been given a second chance after a felony at age 21. Under Florida law, a judge had discretion. Yet this same man now wants to deny that discretion to young people in Washington, D.C. He benefited from mercy, but now preaches punishment. That's not justice, it's hypocrisy, pure and simple. Crockett pointed out that D.C.'s law was in line with other states. Judges had limited discretion for defendants under 25 in less serious cases, and they used it sparingly. This wasn't radical reform, it was common sense. But Republicans rewrote it without understanding it and then demonized it for political points. As Crockett put it, they could not understand how to read the law and decided they were going to rewrite the law and mess up the law. From there, she widened the scope. She reminded the committee that this administration had already illegally bombed a Venezuelan boat, an act that raises the specter of reckless military escalation. She reminded them that Trump has filed lawsuit after lawsuit against major news outlets, from the New York Times to the Wall Street Journal to CBS and ABC. These lawsuits are not about truth, they are about intimidation. They are about silencing anyone who dares to speak facts. And then came the most devastating section of her remarks, Trump's pardons. Crockett listed name after name, case after case, of individuals convicted of horrific crimes who were pardoned by Trump. Theodore Mindendorf, convicted of predatory criminal sexual assault of a child. Peter Schwartz, a man with 38 prior convictions, including domestic abuse. David Daniel, convicted of child pornography. Daniel Ball, who hurled explosives at police officers during January 6th. Andrew Taki, who sent sexual images to someone he thought was a 15-year-old girl. Casey Hopkins, convicted of forcible rape, choking his victim, slamming her head into a wall, and humiliating her. These are not minor offenders. These are violent predators. And Trump decided to unleash them back onto America's streets. Crockett made it plain. If anyone is responsible for crime in D.C., it is Trump. And she was not done. She reminded the room that as a defense attorney, she had never once seen a client with 34 felony convictions avoid jail. Never. Yet Trump, convicted on multiple felony counts, remains free and even seeks the highest office in the land. That double standard is not just unfair, it is corrosive. It tells the American people that justice is not blind, that justice is for sale, that justice bends for the powerful but breaks for everyone else. This is why Crockett's framing is so powerful, because lawful or lawless is not an academic exercise. It is the lens through which we must view this entire moment. Republicans say they are the party of law and order, but their actions prove otherwise. They ignore court orders, they suppress speech, they undermine due process, they pardon predators, they attack the free press, they shield an insurrectionist. That is not law and order, that is lawlessness and disorder. Even other Democrats in the hearing echoed this. Congressman Bill Pascrell reminded everyone that Republicans posture about morality while refusing to act on real threats like gun violence. They rail about protecting children while excusing predators. They decry crime while enabling criminals. The hypocrisy is staggering, and here lies the danger. If Americans accept this, if we normalize it, then the precedent will be set. The law does not apply to the powerful. The Constitution is optional. The press can be silenced. Violence can be pardoned. That is the road to authoritarianism. Crockett's questions forced that choice into the open, lawful or lawless. The answers were clear, the evidence was damning, and the conclusion is unavoidable. Donald Trump and the Republican Party are not defending the Constitution, they are dismantling it. The party of law and order is out of order, and unless Democrats fight, unless the American people demand accountability, lawlessness will not just continue, it will become the norm. This is not just about Trump. It is about every Republican who enables him. It is about every lawmaker who rewrites laws they don't understand. It is about every politician who benefited from mercy but denies it to others. It is about whether America remains a nation of laws or descends into a nation of men who believe themselves above the law. Lawful or lawless? The test is simple. The verdict is clear.